Ajit, what's up, man? Welcome to the SABM podcast.
Hey, how's it going, Scott? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for being here. And it's been, it's been fun getting to know you over the last couple of months and watching your presentations to the investor group. Um, and you've been doing a great job and excited to have you here on the podcast today to talk about Croptell and all that you guys have going on.
No, I'm excited to be here. We've had a great time being part of the SABM and learning about what you guys are doing and the platform you're providing for, Service Academy entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and you've got, a platform that you're building for farmers to
Yeah,
providing access to capital. Yeah, maybe just to kick things off, would love to hear a little bit more, from you about, hey, what is Croptel? What do you guys do? And that'd be a good place to start today's conversation.
yeah. So Croptell was founded by a gentleman named Scott Sartor. He's been in the ag industry his whole life. He's from Hernando, Mississippi, sort of on the southern end of the breadbasket of the United States. His dad was a farmer, but he chose to go a different route. He chose to go the route of sort of on the white collar side of the farming industry, if you will. So on the finance side, right?
Okay.
Because he knew finance was important. And he's a Mississippi State grad and majored in agriculture and finance. And so this was his baby. And I kind of met him 2 years ago through a mutual friend, one of the largest sweet potato farmers in the country. We kind of hunted together at the same duck club in the Mississippi Delta, and that's how we got linked up. And then I consulted with Scott for about 2 years, and then he brought me on full time as the chief revenue officer and chief operating officer. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do, we're really trying to disrupt the agricultural finance space. We're a fintech that operates in the ag finance space, and we want to revolutionize crop finance through artificial intelligence.
Gotcha. And walk us through a little bit maybe how, I guess, farmers get financing today, or like how does it typically work? And then I'd love to, learn a little bit more about your solution and what you guys are offering.
Yeah, majority of the farmers in the United States, when you talk about the breadbasket, you talk about how the breadbasket is really split by the Mississippi River, right? You've got states like Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Kansas. A lot of these states um, are rural states. And the majority of the financing is really done by your independent community banks and then the farm credit system of the United States. So that's where the majority of the lending is done. And it's done more on a relationship level. What we're trying to do at Croptel is really put a little bit of data science behind the operation. Scott, throughout the past couple of years, has really figured out that only 18% of farmers actually do budgets.
Hmm.
Farmers farm because they want to farm, not because they want to be accountants or CPAs, something like that. So what we want to do is we want to sort of automate that budget process for the farmer and then allow the farmer to have a better relationship with their lender. So some of the things we're also noticing, we talk about who's in the space and who's not. What we're learning today is there are non-bank lenders that want to jump in this space as well. Right now, it's a tough time to farm. Everybody knows the macroeconomic conditions that are going around for the farmers. It's the higher cost of fertilizer, pesticides, fuel. Then you have the swinging prices of the commodity markets. If there's a drought in of a certain part of the country, or if there's a drought in another part of the world, that affects commodity prices here locally in the United States and globally. And then we also know that the price that is incurred when tariffs are levied across the board. We're an exporting nation when it comes to commodities: corn, soybean, cotton, wheat, rice. We export. We're a large exporter of food. And so anytime that there's a potential trade war, farmers are affected. So it's really, like I said, it's really a tough time to be a farmer. And when you talk about distilling the inputs at the micro level, and then you talk about the macro level with what goes on globally. So we want to make that process for the farmer much simpler and more predictable.
Gotcha. And then, so once, so maybe you identify a farmer, like, hey, you start building that relationship. We can help you. Walk us through a little bit how your platform works, or like, from their experience, using it. Like, yeah, walk us through how that works for the
Yeah,
farmer.
so it's a simple onboarding process. Anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes for a farmer to onboard their data into the system. And what we've done is, we have a data scientist that's created the crop budgets in all of the major crop producing counties in the country, row crop producing counties, which is about 3,000 counties in the United States. So we've done those budgets. And so it's really simple for the farmer to input their budget. Once they input their budget, then we can analyze that data for different trends, right? And the more data we get, the better we will get with our analysis. And then you layer in artificial intelligence on the back end that allows us to provide more insights, not only for the farmer and what to expect, because what we're looking at operating loans, and the collateral for those operating loans is the harvest,
Hmm.
right? So it's the harvest. So we're on a day-to-day basis, we're tracking those trends on a day-to-day basis to give those farmers insights. Um, yep.
Yeah, and that's going to be a great service as well for the banks, right, and the financial institutions or lenders, because now they've got all the data that they need to underwrite the loans, whereas before it might have been like back of the napkin or whatever, But
That's right, right? So it's just more than just the FICO score. It's an alternative adjudication method to assess the credit worthiness of the farmer, right? To see, it allows the banks to see how a farmer is running this business operation. And that way the lender can see, hey, maybe I need to loan that farmer a little bit more money because they have excess grain that they could store and sell when the price is a little higher. Or, hey, I need to dial back that loan because this farmer is really they're incurring some losses because the weather is bad in a certain part of the country.
yeah, I'm wondering if this is more valuable to the bank or more valuable to the farmer, or if it's a little bit of both. So it sounds like there's two customers here, and I feel like you're doing a great service for the bank, because you're bringing maybe a tech stack to the conversation, or to the relationship that they might not have, to be able to kind of evaluate, whether they should underwrite a loan or not. And then obviously for the farmer, it's, you're certainly helping them out as well. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, that's right. Because at the end of the day, we want the farmer and the lender to have a better relationship. That's ultimately what we're driving towards. And then, for the farmer, it's predictability in how I'm doing. And then for the banker, it's, hey, I can underwrite the farmer's credit worthiness and really track that on a day-to-day basis. Yep, you're exactly right.
All right. What are some of your biggest goals right now? Maybe short term, looking out over the course of the rest of this year, and long term, 3 to 5 years down the road, where do you guys want Croptell to be?
Yeah, short term, I think, obviously we're looking to raise money so we can really propel the product through this next crop finance crop cycle, right? September through March, right? That's what we're looking at in terms of the agricultural finance crop cycle. And we've got a couple of potential customers, actually three letter of intent signed, and then one that we're working on right now.
Okay.
So we're working with a private equity company that wants to underwrite 600 million in operating loans with an average loan size of $1 million. So what they want us to do, they want us to onboard potential clients, right? So we'll automate and create a budget for them, provide a term sheet, and then they can decide whether they want to originate the loans. And then from that, we'll earn basis points, right? That's one of the fee structures that we have. The other fee structure is really a white label product, as you said, for the banks, right? So banks can see their 100 farmers at any given time, and we can really stress test each loan, a,
Hmm.
a simple stoplight method, red, green, red, yellow, green. It's pretty simple. And so if a credit officer of a bank is not as experienced or well versed in farming lingo, this simplifies it for them.
Absolutely. And so what is the pitch then? So it sounds like you've got a really good relationship you're working on with the private equity company and I guess what's the pitch to the farmer? Like how like hey, we have all this money, guys,
Yeah.
like what
So,
are you
so I
like
think
how are you building relationships
yeah.
with the
So
farmers?
so I think there are probably about 265,000 Gen Z and millennial farmers coming online. And basically what they're doing is it's via succession planning. They're taking over from older Gen Xers or older boomers that are getting out of the or retiring from the farming business. So they're taking over these family farms. And so those are our targets, and that's our target market. And then in within the heartland, within the breadbasket of America. And then distill it down, and you think about it, these farmers, Gen X and millennial, they've been digitally native their whole lives, right? So they expect less paper, more on the phone, right? They're expecting that, and that's what we draw. That's what we're aiming to do. Take the paper out of it, keep it an efficient onboarding process, 5 minutes, and then as that farmers onboard to the system, more data we get, we're going to start pushing data out to those farmers through our Croptell guidance, which will be powered by AI, right? So that they'll receive as much data as they want, or they can opt out of not receiving that data, but they'll have a choice. That's the biggest thing. We're providing a choice for those younger farmers.
Gotcha. And how are you building relationships with the farmers? Or, it sounds, I know Scott, it sounds like he's been in in that industry, for a while. But I don't know, imagine if they're like on LinkedIn or like,
Yeah.
how do you, like, what does outreach look like? I'm just kind of,
Yeah, yeah. So we've got to hit in this day and age, it's got to be a multi-pronged approach, right? So you've got to hit LinkedIn, you've got to hit Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. You've got to
okay.
hit those major social media platforms that those farmers are on. And also, I think you've got to go to the farm shows to promote the brand, to ensure that the brand awareness is out there. The Commodity Classic, American Farm Bureau Convention. So it's a multi-pronged approach via social media as well as in-person marketing campaigns that will sort of foster and garner that brand awareness.
Yeah. And it's definitely a niche market. So I'm sure word of mouth as well, as you're building relationships and you're providing people with good experiences, they tell their friends. So,
Yeah, 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 exactly. It is a highly niche market. As we're finding out, there aren't a lot of companies out there focusing on the five major row crops and focusing on sort of that loan origination process with farm financial management on the back end. So it's a highly niche market.
all right. Well, what are your biggest challenges right now? How can the listeners help you out? What connections are valuable for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're learning, especially with a lot of the independent community banks, is it's uh, it's a slower industry to change. You think about industries that rapidly evolve and industries that are slow to change. We've learned that the smaller banks are they as we talk to them, they like the product, but they're just a little hesitant because they're not sure. Because they've done things a certain way for decades and decades, and they feel that they may not want to upset the overturn the apple cart, right? So that's one of the biggest challenges is getting that awareness out to those smaller independent community banks, but also understanding too that this technology could be a business multiplier because those smaller banks don't have a lot of money to spend on technology. We're a more cost-efficient way to help bring these banks into the 21st century. That's on the sort of business side, the business development side. I think the other thing that we're really focusing on right now, as well as developing the product for this next agricultural finance cycle, is fundraising, right? We need that money to help us grow within this next year, over this first farm financial cycle, that we have our full product capabilities ready to go. And then that's sort of the near target. I would say 3 to 5 years. Once we really onboard farmers to a level where we think we have sort of that center of gravity, it's really what can we do on the back end with the data to provide those services for the banks, for the farmers, for academia, for crop risk insurance, for the non-bank lenders. So we'll be sitting at the center of this agricultural finance ecosystem, and all of these verticals can try to get data from us, right? Request access to that data. That's where I think 3 to 5 years, it's going to be more valuable than it is now.
Well, that's really exciting, man. It's a really cool product that you guys have created, and yeah, it's really exciting. And what's the best way for folks to reach out, get in touch, and connect? If they want to learn more about what you do.
Yeah, so they can contact me if they're part of the Service Academy business masterminds. In the contacts, my phone number is 202-361-7674. Be happy to take their call anytime, any place. And yeah, we're always open for business.
All right, sounds good. And we'll link to your LinkedIn profile and website in the
That's
show
right.
notes, so people can reach out and connect with you. And did we miss anything? Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up today,
Well,
Ajit?
I mean, I think, and you know this as well. I grew up maybe 20 minutes north of you on the eastern shore of Delaware,
Oh,
uh,
okay,
in a place called Seaford.
that's
Um,
great.
yeah, so I grew up in the farming community because literally where I grew up, it was the heart of chicken country, right? Purdue chicken. So if you weren't growing the chickens, you were growing the corn or soybeans to help feed the chickens. So I grew up with a lot of friends and their parents were in the agricultural industry. So, even though I wasn't a farmer, it's kind of near and dear to my heart because I was completely integrated into this community when my parents came to the U.S. from India. So I know how critical that this industry is, and I know the the thin margins that farmers operate on, which is why we at Croptell believe that this is a great product. This will put the farmers in a better financial position and empower them to really focus on what matters to them, and that's being the best farmer they can be.
Well, Ajit, man, hey, well, congrats on yeah, joining the Croptail team, man, and building that relationship, and joining forces with Scott, and now as the chief revenue officer out there, trying to make the hay. So,
That's right.
but yeah, I forgot that you grew up. We grew up pretty close to each other. So yeah, I've got yeah, the Purdue family, and was in from the town that I grew up in, and then my best what I mean, one of my buddies from the baseball team back in the day. He's a sod farmer and did the sod at Camden Yards.
That's
So
right.
he's like, hey, he kept telling us in high school, he's like, oh, I'm going to be a sod farmer. We're like, what are you talking about? Like, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't want to go to college or whatever. And I saw him about 10 years ago at a trade show in Baltimore, and him and his dad are just crushing it. So I was like,
Yeah.
dude, you had the vision.
That's right. That's right. And that's one of the things, right? You think about just little simple things like that. Someone is thinking about it, and what you realize is people have a lot of great ideas, but the market rewards execution, right? And your friend did exactly that. He executed. And that's what I think Scott's doing, right? Because it sounds so simple. You're like, well, how come no one's doing this now? Well, no one's really executed on a really good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, congrats, Ajit. Good stuff, man. And we'll link to your contact info in the chat so if people can or in the show notes so people can reach out and connect with you. And I look forward to seeing you next week, I guess, right? On the your
Yeah.
last pitch to the group.
Yep. Yep. All
All
right.
right. Yeah, well, here's to an awesome finish to 2025.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast and the platform.